Welcome to Infinite Library, where every story is a new mystery waiting to be solved. Grab a coffee, stay curious, and share the thrill with fellow mystery lovers. The stars didn't shimmer the way stars should. Not here in this nameless system carved out of the void. From the bridge of the SS Polaris, Captain Ilara Marek leaned forward in her seat, her eyes fixed on the viewport. The vast array of stars before her wasn't random. It couldn't be. Lines connected them in impossible geometric precision, too perfect to be natural. Every star seemed deliberately placed, forming angular patterns that spiraled outward, intricate and cold. A whispered murmur filled the bridge, the crew struggling to reconcile what they were seeing. "Lieutenant Corin," Ilara said, her voice sharp against the tension. "What do we have?" The young officer swallowed hard and stared at his console. "Still no emissions, Captain. No planets in orbit, but..." He hesitated, glancing at her. "The pattern's too symmetrical. I think it's constructed." Ilara's stomach twisted. Stars didn't move into formation. Space wasn't neat or orderly. And yet, this arrangement radiated purpose. "Captain." The voice came from the ship's linguistics officer, Dr. Leon Navarro, who was staring at a holographic projection of the constellation. "It's more than geometry. I've been cross-referencing the alignments with historical languages, and this sounds absurd, but I think it's trying to say something." Silence fell over the bridge. "Explain," Ilara demanded. Leon hesitated. "The angular placements match ancient Earth symbols, early Mesopotamian, but distorted, simplified." She gestured at a section of the hologram. "Here, this could mean danger, and this..." She pointed at another point, trembling slightly. "This translates to, they are coming." The words hung heavy in the air, suffocating. Ilara straightened, her gut instinct telling her to leave the system immediately. But curiosity and duty rooted her. They had discovered the unknown, something no other species had reported in the centuries since humanity joined the galactic fold. "Helm, hold position," she ordered. "Dr. Navarro, keep decoding. Lieutenant Corin, scan for anomalies in the system. Let's figure out who or what is responsible for this." Minutes turned into hours as the crew worked feverishly. The tension on the bridge thickened with each passing moment. Leon's voice occasionally broke the silence, unraveling fragments. "Gov meaning from the starry tableau. They left a warning," she muttered. "Whoever they are, it's clear this wasn't meant for just anyone. These symbols, they're rooted in human cognition. No other species would recognize them." Before Ilara could respond, the lights flickered. A low hum rippled through the ship, a vibration that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. "Status?" she barked. "Unknown energy pulse," Corin replied, panic creeping into his tone. "It's... Captain, the constellation is changing." Ilara's gaze snapped back to the viewport. The stars themselves seemed to shift, their positions realigning into new patterns, new messages. Navarro gasped. "It's responding to us." The humming grew louder, almost deafening. Ilara gripped the armrests of her chair, her mind racing. Who could have designed something of this scale? And why? Then, as suddenly as it began, the noise ceased. A single, chilling word appeared on Navarro's screen, displayed in stark, glowing symbols: "Prepare." The message left no room for interpretation. Whatever was coming, it wasn't friendly. The hum lingered in their ears, like the echo of something, vast and unknowable, receding into the void. The bridge of the SS Polaris remained deathly quiet. The weight of the single word, "prepare," settling like a physical presence over the crew. Ilara pushed herself to her feet, breaking the silence. "Navarro, lock that message into the data." "Thanks." "Corin, scan the system for any sign of movement. I want to know if something's out there." "Aye, Captain." Corin's voice wavered as his hands moved over his console. "Captain," Navarro interjected, her face pale, "this isn't just a warning. It's adaptive. The constellation rearranged itself in response to us. This kind of communication, it's as if the system is alive." Ilara's gaze sharpened. "You're saying it's intelligent?" "I'm saying it's watching us." The words cut through the crew like a knife. Ilara refused to let the unease show on her face. "Engineering." I want shields on full and engines primed. We're not taking any chances. Yes, Captain, and Navarro hesitated. I think it's designed for us specifically. The reply crackled through the comms, but before she could issue her next command, Corin shouted, Captain, I've got something. The viewport. Dimmed as Corin's display overtook the screen. At the system's edge, something shimmered. At first glance, it seemed like a tear in the fabric of space. A rippling distortion, dark yet glinting faintly with the light of distant stars. What the hell is that? Elara whispered. No known readings, Corin said, his voice tight. It's emitting an energy signature we've never encountered, highly unstable. Whatever it is, Captain, it's massive. Navarro leaned forward, a strange expression crossing her face. Captain, look at the edges of the distortion. The shapes, they're the same symbols as the constellation. Elara clenched her fists, her mind racing. It wasn't just a message, it was a doorway or worse, a beacon. Captain, the distortion is growing, Corin said. At this rate, it'll overtake the inner system in less than 12 hours. Elara stared at the screen, weighing their options. Her training told her to leave, to retreat and report their findings to the Galactic Alliance. But another instinct, one she couldn't ignore, urged her to stay. Navarro, could this be a test? Something meant to gauge our response? It's possible, Navarro replied. But Captain, if this is a test, the question remains, who or what is administering it? Elara nodded, her decision made. We're not running. If someone or something is expecting humanity to act, then we're going to act. Corin, set a course for the distortion. Navarro, keep working on those symbols. I want to know everything. This system has to tell us. A murmur of acknowledgement ran through the bridge as the Polaris turned toward the anomaly. As the ship moved closer, the distortion began to shift, its rippling edges forming new symbols that seemed to beckon them forward. Elara gripped the edge of her chair as she spoke, her voice steady. Whatever's out there thinks it knows us. Let's show it what humanity is made of. The stars dimmed behind them as they entered the shadow of the distortion, their path illuminated only by the glowing alien symbols that pulsed with eerie rhythm, like a heartbeat leading them into the unknown. The SS Polaris slipped closer to the distortion, the vast anomaly swallowing more of the viewport with every passing moment. The pulsing edges flickered and swirled, symbols dancing in and out of existence like whispers on the brink of understanding. Elara leaned forward, gripping the armrest of her command chair. Corin, what's our distance to the anomaly? 200,000 kilometers and closing, Captain, Corin replied, his voice steadier now but tinged with unease. It's massive. Even at this range, it's nearly impossible to measure its full extent. Keep scanning, she ordered. Navarro, anything new from the symbols? Navarro frowned, her fingers dancing over her console. They're still changing, but the patterns, they're converging into something more complex. It's as if they're trying to form an equation or a sequence. Elara's brow furrowed. A sequence? For what? Navarro hesitated, her gaze fixed on her screen. Captain, I think it's meant to test us, to see if we can solve it. Elara's mind raced. The constellation, the shifting symbols, the eerie message, all of it pointed to one thing. This system had been constructed for a purpose. But was that purpose to warn them or to lure them deeper? The hum returned, low and resonant, vibrating. Through the ship, it was stronger now, almost as if the distortion itself was speaking to them. Energy spikes detected, Corin called out. The distortion is becoming unstable. If we get too close, Elara cut him off. Helm, hold position. Navarro, analyze that sequence. We're not backing off until we know what we're dealing with. The bridge crew worked in tense silence, the hum growing louder, more insistent. Navarro's muttering broke the stillness. As she pieced together fragments of meaning from the shifting patterns, "It's like a key," she said half to herself, "but it's incomplete. It's waiting for us to finish it." Elara's gut churned. "You're saying it needs our input?" Hazy symbols, they're too rooted in human logic. No other species could interpret them this way. A cold chill settled over Elara. "You're saying this system, this anomaly, was made with humans in mind?" Before Navarro could respond, the hum reached a crescendo. The distortion flared with blinding light, forcing the crew to shield their eyes. When the light faded, the symbols had solidified into a new pattern, a perfect spiral twisting inward toward a single, central point. "Captain," Corin said, his voice tight with fear. "We're being pulled in. Reverse thrusters," Ilara barked. "Negative, Captain," the helmsman replied. "The anomaly's gravity is overriding our engines." The Polaris shuddered, the hull groaning under the strain as the ship was drawn closer to the distortion. Ilara stood, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Navarro, solve that sequence now." "I'm trying," Navarro snapped, her fingers flying across the console. It's incomplete. It's asking a question." "What question?" Ilara demanded. Navarro turned, her face pale. "It's asking why we're here." The ship lurched violently as the distortion's pull intensified. The spiral symbols began to shimmer, their light dimming as if awaiting an answer. Ilara stepped forward, staring at the swirling abyss on the viewport. Her voice was calm, resolute. "Tell it the truth." Navarro hesitated, then entered a single line into the console. "We're here to understand." For a moment, nothing happened. The ship hung in the grip of the distortion, the hum reaching an unbearable pitch. Then everything went still. The symbols flared brightly one last time, then vanished. The Polaris drifted free, the anomaly receding into the void like a curtain falling. But in its place, a new pattern emerged on the screen. A map, vast and intricate, pointing toward a destination far beyond the known galaxy. Ilara's breath caught. Whatever lay ahead, it had been waiting for humanity. The SS Polaris hung in eerie silence, its systems slowly stabilizing after the sudden release from the anomaly's grip. The bridge crew stared at the intricate map projected before them, its lines glowing with a soft, ethereal light. It was beautiful and haunting, a lattice of interconnected pathways stretching far beyond the borders of the known galaxy. Ilara stood, her eyes fixed on the display. "Navarro, overlay this map with our star charts. I want to know if it aligns with anything we've seen before." Navarro nodded, her fingers flying over her console. A moment later, the map expanded, merging with the Polaris's navigation. Data. The results were staggering. "Captain," Navarro said, her voice barely above a whisper, "this map, it's not just uncharted space. It's a path through sectors we've deemed impassable. Gravitational traps, radiation storms, dark matter clusters. This shows safe routes through all of them." Ilara's breath hitched. "Safe routes? Through places no one has ever survived?" "Yes, Captain. It's like it's inviting us," Corin interjected, his tone sharp. "Or leading us into a trap. We still don't know who or what created this." Ilara turned to face him, her expression calm but firm. "And we won't find out by staying here. This is why we came, Corin, to go where no one else can." The navigator hesitated, but gave a curt nod. "Engineering," Ilara called through the comms. "Status on the engines?" "Nominal, Captain," came the reply. "We're good to go." "Good," she said. "Navarro, plot the first leg of the course. Let's see where this leads." As the Polaris aligned itself with the map's initial waypoint, a strange unease settled over the crew. The stars outside the viewport seemed unnaturally still, as though holding their breath. "Captain," Navarro said cautiously, "before we proceed, there's something else." Ilara arched an eyebrow. "What is it?" Navarro hesitated. "The map. It's not static. It's updating in real time, adjusting based on our position. It's alive, Captain, and—" She swallowed hard. "I think it's watching us." Chill ran through Ilara, but she forced herself to focus. "Then let's give it something to watch." The engines roared to life, and the Polaris surged forward, leaving the anomaly behind. The first waypoint on the map guided them into the heart of a dense nebula. Clouds of luminescent gas swirled around the ship, glowing with hues of violet and gold. "Radiation levels are stable," Corin reported, his voice betraying his amazement. "This area should be lethal, but the map, it's keeping us in a pocket of safety." Ilara nodded, her eyes scanning the nebula. "It knows where we can go and where we can't. Keep an eye on those readings, Corin." As the ship advanced, deeper, A structure began to emerge within the nebula. Massive and ancient, it floated in the void like a cathedral built by gods. Its surface was etched with the same symbols they had seen before, glowing faintly as if dormant. "Captain," Navarro said, her voice tight with excitement, "we're picking up faint energy signatures from that structure. It's active. Ilara's..." Heart raced. "Bring us in closer. Let's see what it has to say." The Polaris approached the monolith, its hull dwarfed by the sheer scale of the structure. The glowing symbols brightened as they neared, forming patterns that pulsed in rhythmic... "Waves, Captain," Corin said, his tone urgent. "We're receiving another signal. It's coming directly from the structure. Patch it through," Ilara ordered. The bridge filled with a low, resonant tone, accompanied by a sequence of notes that sounded almost musical. Then a voice, deep, resonant, and distinctly. Alien spoke in broken but comprehensible English. "Humanity, I see you have arrived." The crew froze, the weight of the words sinking in. Ilara stepped forward, her voice steady but laced with wonder. "Who are you?" she asked. The voice responded, slow and deliberate. "We are the Watchers. We have been waiting to see if you are worthy." Ilara's breath caught. Worthy of what? The symbols on the structure flared brighter, their light casting strange shadows across the bridge. The voice replied, cryptic and final. "Of what comes next?" The signal cut out, leaving only the hum of the ship's systems and the distant crackle of the nebula outside. Ilara turned to her crew, her resolve hardening. "Prepare for an away mission. Whatever they're guarding, it's time we found out." The Polaris floated in silent orbit around the massive structure, its dark surface shimmering faintly as waves of light rippled across its alien etchings. The tension on the bridge was palpable as Ilara finalized the crew selection for the away mission. "Corin, Navarro, and Dr. Ames," she said, her voice steady. "You're with me. We need expertise in navigation, engineering, and xenobiology. Suit up and meet at the airlock in 10 minutes. Corin's brows furrowed. "Captain, are we sure about this? They said they were waiting to see if we're worthy. This feels like a test. What if it's one we're not meant to pass?" Ilara fixed him with a determined gaze. "Then we find out why. We didn't come this far to turn back now." The away team assembled in the airlock, each member clad in reinforced exploration suits designed for hostile environments. Dr. Ames, a wiry man with sharp eyes, carried a portable scanner slung over his shoulder, his fingers twitching nervously against its casing. "Remember," Ilara said, her voice calm but commanding, "this is first contact territory. We approach cautiously, document everything, and assume nothing. Our priority is understanding why this structure and its creators are so interested in humanity." The airlock hissed open, revealing a docking tether that extended toward the monolith's surface. It clamped onto a seamless section of the structure, and a hatchway materialized where none had existed before. Navarro's voice crackled over the comms. "That wasn't there a moment ago. It's reacting to us." Ilara led the way, stepping through the hatch into an enormous chamber. The Taut. Interior glowed with a soft, pulsing light, casting long shadows across the room's towering walls. Symbols and geometric patterns swirled around them, shifting in ways that defied logic, as if the space itself was alive. "This place is rewriting itself as we move," Navarro murmured, her scanner emitting soft beeps. "It's like it's anticipating us." Dr. Ames knelt near the floor, his scanner focused on a series of symbols. "These markings are similar to the ones on the map," he said, his voice tinged with awe. "But they're layered, almost like a language within a language." Corin's hand hovered near his holstered sidearm. "Let's not forget this place might be testing us. Whatever it wants, we need to be ready for it." As the team ventured deeper, the chamber narrowed into a corridor lined with crystalline panels. Each panel displayed fragmented images, scenes of planets, starships, and civilizations both alien and familiar. Ilara paused before one panel, her breath catching. It showed Earth, shrouded in swirling clouds and vibrant oceans, but the image began to shift, revealing a series of cataclysmic events. Earthquakes, tsunamis, and what appeared to be an invasion. "What is this?" she whispered, her hand hovering near the panel. Navarro's voice trembled. It's showing possibilities, futures, maybe even warnings. The images flickered and vanished, replaced by a single glowing symbol. Dr. Ames stepped forward, scanning it carefully. "This one's different," he said, his brow furrowed. "It's a command of some kind. I think it's asking us to choose." Ilara turned to him sharply. "Choose what?" Before Ames could respond, the floor beneath them began to hum, and the corridor opened into a vast circular chamber. At its center stood a pedestal, atop which rested a sphere of pulsing energy. The alien voice echoed through the room, low and resonant. "The test begins. Show us what you are." Ilara approached the pedestal cautiously, her mind racing. The sphere's light shifted as she neared, pulsing in time with her heartbeat. "What is it?" Navarro asked, her voice barely audible. Ilara didn't answer immediately. Instead, she reached out, her fingers hovering just above the sphere's surface. She could feel its warmth, its energy thrumming like a living thing. "It's asking us to decide," Ilara said finally. "But it's not just about survival. It's about proving we understand. Something greater." The voice returned, more insistent now. "Choose wisely. Your kind's future depends on it." Ilara looked back at her team, their faces a mix of fear and resolve. She took a deep breath, then turned her gaze back to the sphere. "Let's find out what they're really asking," she said, her hand descending toward the light. The moment Ilara's fingers touched the sphere, a rush of energy surged through her body, both alien and profoundly familiar. The chamber disappeared in an instant, replaced by a kaleidoscope of visions that unfolded like a story told directly into her mind. She could feel the presence of her team nearby, their breaths sharp in the void, but their voices were distant, as if muted by the force of the connection. The sphere was showing her the creators. She saw them, tall, angular beings, their forms shimmering like light refracted through water. They were ancient, their history spanning epochs beyond comprehension, yet they moved with purpose, their actions deliberate. They were builders, architects of the stars, weaving patterns across galaxies to encode their warnings and their hopes. Ilara's voice was faint but resolute. "I see them, the ones who came before. They're speaking to us." Corin's voice cut through the haze, alarmed. "Captain, your vitals are spiking. What's happening?" "They're showing me," Ilara said, her voice trembling as the visions deepened. The Creator's legacy became clearer. They had been watchers of the cosmos, studying countless civilizations, nurturing the seeds of progress. But they had faced something, a force so vast and consuming that even they, with their godlike intellect and technology, could not withstand it. They had called it the Consume, a being or phenomenon that devoured not just life but meaning itself. The visions shifted violently. Ilara saw the Consume tearing through galaxies, its hunger insatiable. Worlds turned to ash, civilizations erased, as though they had never existed. And then the Creator's final act, a desperate attempt to leave a warning etched into the fabric of the cosmos, hoping that one day a species might rise to heed it. Navarro's voice reached her again, panicked. "Ilara, you're glowing. The sphere, something's happening to it." Ilara opened her eyes and the room reformed around her. The sphere pulsed brighter now, its energy flowing outward in waves. The alien voice returned, deep and resonant. "You have seen. Now you must answer." Ilara stepped back, her breath ragged. "Answer what?" she demanded. The light coalesced, forming symbols in the air, symbols that resembled the constellations they had found. Dr. Ames was furiously scanning them, his face pale. These aren't just warnings," he said. "They're instructions. It's like a puzzle, but it's incomplete." Ilara felt a chill as she realized the truth. "They want us to finish what they started." The alien voice echoed, again, this time softer, almost sorrowful. "Your kind has a choice. Stand and resist or flee as all others have. Prove your worth or be forgotten." The pedestal's surface shifted, revealing 3 distinct paths illuminated by beams of light. Each path shimmered with a unique hue, one red, one blue, one gold. Navarro's scanner beeped wildly. "Captain, these paths, they're emitting different energy signatures. I think they represent different outcomes." Ilara's heart pounded. The crew looked to her, their eyes filled with both fear and trust. She felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her. Humanity's future rested on this decision. "We're not running," Elara said firmly, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "If they wanted us to flee, they wouldn't have called us here. We're meant to fight, meant to learn how to stand against whatever's coming." She stepped toward the gold path, its light warm and steady. The alien voice rang out once more, this time with unmistakable clarity. "Prove you can defy the inevitable." Elara turned to her crew, her expression resolute. "We've faced the unknown before. We're not just survivors, we're explorers, builders, and fighters. If they think we're the ones who can finish what they started, then we'll show them why." She stepped onto the golden path, the light enveloping her and the team in a blinding glow. A new chamber emerged, and with it the true test began. As the golden light faded, Elara and her team found themselves standing in an impossibly vast chamber, its walls stretching beyond the limits of sight. The air hummed with energy, the very fabric of reality shimmering as if unstable. In the center of the room floated a massive construct, a sphere of interlocking rings, each inscribed with glowing symbols that pulsed in rhythmic patterns. Navarro's breath caught. This isn't just a test, it's a machine. A weapon, maybe. Dr. Ames knelt, his scanner trembling in his hands. "Not a weapon," he said, his voice tinged with awe and dread. "It's a key, or perhaps a lock." Elara moved. Closer, her gaze fixed on the construct. It exuded a quiet, terrifying power, as if holding back something far greater. The alien voice returned, resonating through the chamber like the echo of distant thunder. "You stand at the threshold. The choice is yours to make." The construct began to shift, its rings spinning faster, the symbols glowing brighter. The energy in the room grew palpable, pressing against their bodies like an invisible weight. Elara's mind raced. "What are we unlocking?" she asked, her voice steady despite the tension. The voice responded, calm yet ominous. "A force beyond comprehension. The creators sealed it long ago, knowing it could destroy or preserve. The lock requires the will of those who can defy fear, who can reshape the inevitable." Corin stepped forward, his face tight with concern. "Captain, what if this thing isn't meant to save us? What if it's the consume itself?" Elara turned to him, her eyes fierce. "And what if it's the only way to stop it? The creators left this here for a reason. They believed someone could wield it, that someone could be us." Navarro's scanner beeped erratically. "Captain, the energy levels are spiking. Whatever we do, we need to decide now. This thing might be unstable." Elara nodded, stepping closer to the construct. Symbols lit up in her presence, their patterns shifting into shapes she recognized. Stars, constellations, fragments of human history intertwined with alien designs. "It's responding to us," she said softly. "To humanity." A sudden tremor shook the chamber. The golden path behind them dissolved, and the walls began to ripple like liquid. The alien voice grew louder, insistent. "Act or be consumed. Time is fleeting." Elara reached out, her hand hovering near the construct's surface. She could feel its energy coursing through the air, resonating with her heartbeat. Her crew watched in tense silence, the weight of the moment pressing down on all of them. "We were brought here for this," she said, her voice steady. "Humanity has always faced the impossible and found a way through. This isn't just a test of strength, it's a test of belief. Belief in our ability to shape our own fate." Dr. Ames's voice was barely a whisper. "Captain, if you're wrong..." Elara's gaze didn't waver. "If I'm wrong, then we've already lost, but if I'm right..." She pressed her hand against the construct, and the room erupted in light. The rings spun faster, their symbols aligning in a complex, harmonious pattern. The energy in the chamber surged, filling the air with a deafening hum. The alien voice spoke one final time, its tone now layered with both warning and hope. "You have chosen. Now endure what follows." The light consumed them, and the chamber dissolved into a maelstrom of shifting realities. Elara could feel herself pulled into something vast and incomprehensible, a torrent of knowledge and power that defied explanation. The construct's purpose revealed itself, its secrets pouring into her mind. She saw the consume, its relentless hunger, its nature, as a force of entropy. And she saw the Creator's final gamble, a tool that could either seal it away forever or risk unleashing it in a way no species had dared before. When the light subsided, Elara and her team stood in a new space, one untouched by time or decay. The construct floated above them, now dormant. Corin broke the silence. Did it work?" Elara turned to him, her expression resolute. "We'll find out, but one thing's certain. We're not done yet." In the distance, the chamber began to shift again, revealing the next step of their journey. Humanity's trial was far from over.